Who were the barbarian kingdoms? After the fall of Rome. After the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, several small nations survived in the ruins. The question of how successful these barbarian kingdoms were and to what extent they still retained Roman characteristics is complex. During the 4th and 5th centuries AD, the Roman Empire was invaded by Germanic warriors who divided the Western Empire into a series of successor kingdoms. Although this period is sometimes called the Dark Ages, the pattern of cultural change was varied and specific to each region. Many of the barbarian invaders were protected by the Roman Empire and sought to imitate the Roman way of life. This influence can be seen, for example, in the Vandal revival in North Africa and the Visigoth legal codes in Spain, in which many aspects of ancient Roman life were preserved for some time. However, other regions have undergone more rapid changes, losing their vibrant urban culture for many centuries. Additionally, all of the Western kingdoms have been impacted by prolonged political instability. After the fall of Rome, some of these new states managed to establish themselves for a long period, while others enjoyed a brief heyday before collapsing. Next, we will give a brief introduction to the 5 main barbarian successor states. 1. The Vandal Kingdom in North Africa after the fall of Rome. The Germanic Vandals played a role in the fall of Rome and subsequently settled in the Roman provinces of Africa, where they established a short-lived but prosperous kingdom. In the past, the Vandals maintained friendly relations with Rome, concluding a peace agreement during the reign of Marcus Aurelius. However, during the barbarian invasions of the 5th century, the Vandals became enemies of Rome. In 406, they crossed the Rhine frontier, along with several other opportunistic tribes, plundering the Roman Empire. Finding the provinces of Gaul and Hispania already occupied by other roving warrior hordes, the Vandals took the opportunity to migrate from Spain to North Africa in 429. Once in Africa, they gradually made their way across the continent, absorbing most of the local Roman provinces. Although the Western Roman government attempted to negotiate a settlement to make them subjects of the empire, the Vandals established themselves as an independent power. They initially maintained a close relationship with late Roman Italy. However, in 455, they sacked Rome when it was prepared for a change of emperors. Italy depended heavily on grain supplies from Africa to feed its population, and the Roman government unsuccessfully attempted to recover the region. The Vandals' long interaction with the Romans had a significant impact on their way of life, and despite their distant origins, the Vandals enthusiastically embraced their new way of life on the African coast. After conquering important Mediterranean seaports, including Carthage, the emerging Vandal navy became a force to be reckoned with, quickly rising to prominence. In fact, the Old English word for the Mediterranean is Wendelsea, derived from the name Vandals. Life in Vandal Africa. The Vandals became wealthy through maritime activities and trade, but they also gained a confidence from piracy. With its new wealth, Vandal Africa flourished and maintained a luxurious Roman lifestyle. The region preserves Roman culture, with expansions and repairs to public buildings, residences and support for intellectual life. Despite their successes, the Vandals faced criticism due to their adoption of Arian Christianity and passion for Catholic Christians. The Byzantines reconquered the region in 534, taking advantage of this situation. 2. The Ostrogoth Kingdom. The Ostrogoths, a Germanic tribe, settled in the Balkans during the barbarian invasions of the 4th and 5th centuries AD. Under King Theodoric, they conquered the Italian peninsula in 490, after the fall of Rome and the deposition of the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustus, by Odoacer. Theodoric assumed the throne in 493, maintaining the Roman government structure. The Ostrogoths preserved the Senate and built churches and monuments. Despite calling himself a Roman leader, Theodoric flourished with the Roman aristocracy, taking place in the prison of Boethius, a senator and philosopher. Although Theodoric's kingdom was stable for a time, Italy remained in happiness. The empire's lack of resources led to a food economy, affecting the population. Urban culture persisted, but with divided and impoverished Roman houses. Ravenna, the Ostrogothic capital, was renovated and Ostrogothic monuments such as the Basilica of Sant'Apollinare Nuovo still exist. However, Ostrogothic rule in Italy was brief, as the Byzantines challenged their control, plunging the peninsula into perpetual war in the 6th century. 3. Frankish Kingdom. The Frankish Kingdom is one of the most successful barbarian states on our list due to its significant growth after the fall of Rome. In the 5th century, the Roman province of Gaul was divided into several kingdoms, including the Burgundians, the Franks, the Germans, and the Visigoths, among others. The Franks, one of the Germanic tribes, fought to control Gaul and ended up occupying the north, later expanding into the rest of the territory that is now known as France. They also ruled the Benelux region and large parts of Germany, areas that were beyond the Roman provinces. Although the Franks were initially divided into different groups, they were unified under the reign of Clovis I, the first king of France, an impressive historical title. Clovis initiated the removal of the Visigoths in southern Gaul and established a stable and powerful kingdom under the Merovingian Frankish dynasty. Clovis also brought stability to the Franks by converting to Catholicism, becoming the first barbarian king to do so, since most barbarian powers at the time were Arian Christians. This pragmatic decision avoided many problems arising from religious conflicts that affected other post-Roman states. Although Frankish culture became prosperous, the expanding region initially experienced a series of devastating barbarian invasions. However, the elites of early medieval Gaul, who would later be known as France, distinguished themselves during this troubled period in European history, maintaining a high level of wealth and power. Their successors, the Carolingian dynasty, became the leading power in Western Europe. The wealth of early medieval Francia. Post-Roman France maintained a sizable and relatively prosperous economy. During the late Roman period, Gaul became an important industrial center, producing Gallic products such as argon bowls, which were widely distributed throughout northern Europe. This crucial commercial center supplied goods to the armies of the Rhine, and as a result Merovingian Francia inherited a major industrial center. Even into the early Middle Ages, Francia continued to produce products such as fine pottery, metal tools, and glass on a large scale. Although the market for these goods declined significantly after the fall of Rome, Frankish goods were still traded along the Rhine, and Francia itself became a large and stable market. Other parts of the West have suffered much more economically due to internal instability, political fragmentation. The Frankish aristocracy also became quite wealthy, accumulating power not only through their military position but also through large land holdings. Testaments from the Merovingian era show that aristocrats owned vast tracts of land, making the dukes of the Merovingian court extremely wealthy, and the Merovingian kings even wealthier. However, although this situation benefited the Frankish elite, the medieval world that emerged in this period was considerably darker than the Roman world that preceded it. Unlike the Vandals or Goths, the Franks did not attempt to maintain Roman government structures. Although early medieval Francia produced many wealthy individuals, the Merovingian government failed to maintain the Roman tax system, and urban life rapidly declined, giving way to a predominantly agrarian society. The powerful move to rural areas, and sophisticated Roman lifestyles were replaced by a characteristically rural and indisputably medieval structure. 4. The Visigothic Kingdom. Among the tribes responsible for the fall of Rome, the Visigoths have an especially low opinion due to the sack of Rome in 410 CE. After leaving the city in disarray, the Visigoths established their own kingdom, conquering much of the Iberian Peninsula and a portion of southwestern Gaul. However, his government in the Iberian Peninsula faces challenges from different groups, such as the Germanic Suebi and the Basque-speaking Vascones. The latter ended up founding the Kingdom of Navarre, in the north of Christian Spain, and became a constant source of discomfort for the Visigothic kings. Furthermore, the Visigoths came into conflict with the powerful Franks, losing their lands in France. Despite this, the Visigoths managed to establish a medieval kingdom that absorbed Roman influences and lasted until the beginning of the 8th century. However, The Visigoths' adoption of the Arian heresy of Christianity did not please their subjects, and the post-Roman Holy Kingdom fragmented and was inevitable throughout its history. In the 7 AD, the Prophet Muhammad unified the Arabian Peninsula, and his successors, the Umayyad dynasty, undertook a rapid campaign of conquest, absorbing centuries-old lands from the Middle East to northern Spain. These successful Muslim warriors conquered the Iberian Peninsula within a few years between 711 to 718 CE before they were finally stopped in France at the Battle of Tours. In the late Middle Ages, Christian Spain, facing difficulties, found inspiration in the Visigoths, keeping alive the memory of a unified Christian Iberian kingdom, while fighting for control of the peninsula against the Muslim Emirate of Córdoba. Life in the Visigothic Kingdom, Revolt and Integration. The Visigoths in Iberia, like their counterparts in Italy, sought to rule in a manner similar to the Romans. Archaeology in southern Spain suggests that despite economic contraction, urban life continues as before, and the records of Isidore of Seville show that Roman intellectual culture also survived in some places. The Visigoths adopted the Latin language and became important legislators in post-Roman states. They initially followed the Roman Theodosian Code before promulgating their own legal codes, with the assistance of Roman lawyers. Despite wanting to adopt Roman ways of life, the Visigoths were unable to achieve peace in the Iberian Peninsula through their attempts at integration. Differences between rulers and subjects were exacerbated by religion, until the Visigoth king Requerido finally converted to Catholicism in 587. The Visigoths faced a series of coups and failed to establish a hereditary monarchy, unlike the Franks who were more successful in this regard. The Byzantine Emperor Justinian I took advantage of the chaotic state of the Visigoths and managed to gain a foothold in southern Spain, further increasing the problems faced by the Visigoths. However, the Visigoth kings subsequently had better luck. Especially King Leovigildo, who carried out military expeditions that helped unify the peninsula and tried to follow the Byzantine style of government. He also eliminated the remaining legal distinctions between Goths and Romans, seeking unity. Although the Goths and Romans merged over the next century, in the early 700s the Iberian Peninsula was still politically inescapable, and the Visigoths were easily defeated by Muslim conquests. 5. Ancient Anglo-Saxon England. Anglo-Saxon England developed uniquely, differing from other post-Roman states. Following the withdrawal of Roman soldiers from Britain in 410, there was an immediate collapse in provincial administration and a long period of hardship known as the Dark Ages. The Roman presence in Britain was almost completely destroyed, and Anglo-Saxon settlers took over, shaping English culture for many centuries until the Norman invasion in 1066. The Angles, Jutes and Saxon tribes that arrived in Britain at the beginning of the century were little known before the barbarian invasions. These tribes came from distant regions, probably sailing from Denmark, Saxony and Friesland. Unlike other groups that participated in the fall of Rome, they did not adopt the Latin language or Roman customs. Some of these invaders were hired by local natives and served as protection in the absence of the Roman army. We know that Ambrose Aureliano, a Romano-British leader of aristocratic origin, had some successes against the invaders and was possibly inspired by the legends of King Arthur. However, there is little known about the events that marked the beginning of Anglo-Saxon England. The outlying regions of the United Kingdom, such as Cornwall, Somerset and Wales, remained unconquered for centuries and became strongholds of the Christian Celtic Britons. These small British kingdoms were not greatly influenced by Romanization and maintained their Celtic identity, speaking a language called Brittonic rather than Latin. Britain struggled after the fall of Rome and became the post-Roman state least influenced by Roman culture. After the fall of Rome, cultural upheaval in post-Roman Britain. The archaeology of early Anglo-Saxon culture reveals a decline in living standards and foreign wings. However, this trend did not just begin after the fall of Rome, but much earlier, as political turmoil on the continent increasingly affected British politics. The gradual collapse of the Roman international trade network had a devastating impact on an increasingly basic Britain. After the fall of Rome, the chaotic situation that followed, with the absence of a Roman government and a fractured tax system, further worsened the economy. Unlike other post-Roman states, Anglo-Saxon England failed to become a centralized kingdom, breaking up into many small states ruled by local kings. Urban life in Britain quickly disappeared, with many major urban centers being abandoned. In the West, where native Britons still maintained control, ancient Iron Age fortresses were retaken by those seeking safety. Culture also underwent rapid changes during this period. The Anglo-Saxons were the only invaders to convert natives from Christianity back to paganism, which led Rome to send missionaries to Britain in the 7th century. During this time, England provoked a true Dark Ages, with few written sources available except a few inscriptions. Most knowledge about Anglo-Saxon England from this period comes from Gildas, a British monk who settled in Brittany, France, along with other British refugees. Later, as English culture began to prosper, Old English emerged as a distinct Germanic language, initially written in the runic alphabet, in contrast to the Latin-acquired continental Romance languages. Britain's gradual economic recovery occurred during the 7th century, and we have important sources for the country in the 8th century. Later Anglo-Saxon culture would become rich and interesting, retaining much of its Germanic tribal character. So, what did you think of today's video? What impressed you most? I hope this video was helpful. If you have anything to add, please share it with us in the comments section. And if you liked this video and haven't subscribed to our channel yet, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any of the intriguing videos we post every week. And if you want to learn a little more, be sure to click on one of these videos we are suggesting for you. Remember, to know the past is to understand the present and prepare for the future. Until the next video.